Good day, everyone across North America. This is John Garmendi with Sony's Professional Solutions of America, welcoming you to another in our series of Tech Tuesday AV Solutions webinars. These webinars were started in response to the COVID crisis so that our customers, resellers, integrators, and consultants can stay informed and up to date on Sony's latest products and solutions. Today's webinar is part of the application and technology focus series we started during the month of August. This week, our healthcare team will be providing an overview of their NUCLeUS video over IP platform for the OR and the integration of Sony's PTZ Network cameras. Before we start, a few housekeeping items. As in previous webinars, there'll be an opportunity for Q&A, so please submit your questions via the GoToMeeting question panel. I'll post links to the information referred to during the webinar in the chat panel, and I will also post a link to our YouTube playlist where you can view all of our archived Tech Tuesday webinars. Joining me today is Drew Buttress, Senior Product Manager for PTZ Cameras and Business Projectors, Mark Barron, Head of our Healthcare Solutions Engineering, and as our main presenter, Paul Nunez, Healthcare Solutions Architect. With that, I'll turn it over to Paul, and I'll see you back here for Q&A at the end.
Greetings, everyone. Good morning from the West Coast. Well, actually, it's Arizona, but that's as far west as I want to go at the moment. I'm having an issue here. Forgive me, just give me a sec. Welcome to another Tech Tuesday. Sorry about that. I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe and staying cool. It's no longer 150 degrees outside. I'm very, very happy about that. Happy September 1st. I'm Paul Nunez, one of the integration architects here at Sony Healthcare. I'm involved in the NUCLeUS project, and we're going to continue our dive into Sony NUCLeUS with a special focus on remote patient monitoring utilizing our PTZ cameras. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to type them into the message box, and our moderators will either interrupt me or save them for the Q&A session at the end. In the last webinar, we talked a lot about the technology and the hardware surrounding NUCLeUS. Let's do a little refresher. Let's change my slide here. Let's do a little refresher before we dive into patient monitoring. So what is NUCLeUS? NUCLeUS is video integration for healthcare. It's a video integration and imaging platform that gives the user the ability to ingest still images and video from any video modality in the clinical space and to capture that content for distribution to surgical monitors in the room or for recording or broadcasting. That means that we can capture high resolution images and video from multiple sources simultaneously. All the content is then stored on the hospital network and available to be retrieved securely by the doctor at a later time. NUCLeUS does not utilize CD burners or USB thumb drives anywhere in the OR. We can also broadcast multiple sources simultaneously. We can set up two-way video conferencing. We can tile up to 4 images on any display, and we can overlay telestration on any source. We can even engage our patient distraction system to show relaxing music and video as the patient is entering the surgical space. Many procedures are done with conscious sedation, so the patient might be partially awake, and there's no question that a distracted patient is often more comfortable, more relaxed, and consumes less medication. To help you visualize the platform in a typical OR, I've mocked up this slide with a single modality, in this case a Zeiss microscope, a single wall display, and a PTZ camera in the ceiling. Our user interface touch panel is right there on the right. The encoder, or IPC as we call it, ingests the video signal and puts it on the IP network. It's not to scale in the slide, but I wanted to show it large enough so you could see it. It's connected to each modality, and a similar IPC or decoder is connected to each display. We have a special VESA mount for the IPC on the display, so it fits neatly between the display and the mounting bracket. As a side note, PTZ cameras, IP cameras, and most computers like PACS or HIS computers do not require an IPC to connect to NUCLeUS. The touch panel on the right of the screen controls the entire system. It can start and stop the capture of an intervention, switch the right image to the right display, initiate a timeout, and broadcast any source to a remote viewer. And incidentally, the touch panel also does not require an IPC. The touch panel can live on the nurse desk. It can be mounted on a wall, or if necessary, it can be eliminated altogether, and the entire user interface can be controlled from any web browser. So for example, a nurse computer that has Internet Explorer or Chrome can have a tab open that completely controls NUCLeUS. Now, if you're an audiovisual integrator, or if you're in broadcasting, or if you install boardrooms and conference rooms, you know that most of the functionality I've just described comes with a significant hardware footprint. You need an equipment rack with baseband video switching, controllers, video scalers, and other hardware to make it all work. And until very recently, all this equipment was in the OR, creating unnecessary heat, noise, taking up space that could be used for other equipment more critical for patient care. This is where we're different. We utilize the existing hospital IP network to move all that content with virtually no hardware footprint in the OR. I'll let you read the bullet points, but the main idea is with NUCLeUS, we are not confined to the I/O of a traditional video switch. There is no video switch. All video is converted at the edge and placed on the IP network. You can have as many inputs or outputs as necessary, and you can change the configuration of the room up or down with minimal infrastructure cost. You can run multiple ORs from the same server components, which are installed neatly and securely in an IT closet where they belong. Once the main server components are installed, integrating additional ORs is a simple matter of adding a network port for every modality and for every display. So what are some other benefits of IP-based integration? Think about that. Take a few seconds and write down your answer in the message box. One of the main benefits of NUCLeUS is the ability to broadcast images from the clinical space. These images could be data from a respirator, vitals, or surgical camera video, but may also include room video from a PTZ or a fixed lens camera or several cameras. This allows the remote user to be virtually present in the room, which can lower staff exposure to critically ill patients while maintaining quality care. In the case of PTZ cameras, the remote user can easily control the camera position for the best view. To protect patient privacy, broadcasting is always enabled by default and may only be turned on by the nurse in the room. This slide here shows a procedure underway. Broadcasting has been enabled, and we can see the remote user is logged into the NUCLeUS interface using a web browser and has 5 sources to choose from. To enable broadcasting on any source, the nurse in the OR simply taps on the source preview and then taps the broadcast button. That's it. The same is also true in reverse. For example, instead of broadcasting from the OR as we're doing here, another clinical area can initiate the broadcast. Pathology is a good example. With NUCLeUS, a pathology lab can broadcast their microscope images to any surgical display in the OR in real time, giving the surgeon the information he needs without breaking scrub to go to the phone. So you can start to see the benefits of utilizing PTZ cameras for remote patient monitoring, especially in the age of COVID, where nurses need to prioritize a patient that needs immediate care versus a stable patient. And there's also the issue of cross-contamination as you go in and out of rooms, gowning and degowning, the consumption of personal protective equipment, PPE, not to mention the waste of PPE, which by some accounts can be reduced as much as 70% with electronic patient monitoring. This type of patient monitoring also helps cut down on unnecessary patient staff contacts. Is the patient truly in distress? Do I really need to go in that room, or can I handle it remotely? So in this time of crisis where there's such a shortage of PPE, it's all very important and it makes sense to be virtually present. We can now leverage the cameras in the room to deliver an eye-in-the-sky overview of many clinical spaces at once. In this case, these 7 rooms are all set up for room view, but the user can easily change the source from room camera to any other video signal that is being broadcast. For example, if you roll in a portable C-arm or an endoscopy tower, you can easily select that as the primary source for the room you're looking at. This is ideal for a physician that frequently works out of 2 or more rooms. This interface can also be accessed on a mobile device like an iPad or an Android tablet, or on any client PC in the hospital. The physician can easily see the room status and can decide if there's time to see another patient or grab a bite prior to walking down to the OR suites. Clicking or tapping on any room brings up the detail screen for that room, showing a high-resolution image and any additional sources that are available. So this is OR1 from the previous slide. We see our telemetry view and our room view. Any source can be scaled to full screen by tapping on the button on the bottom right. Tapping again goes back to the original view. It's all browser-based and secured with login credentials, so only those users that have been granted access by the hospital can access the broadcast. So let's take it one step further. In this age of doing more with less, we can conceptualize a command center where you can have a technician or a nurse monitor multiple patients, which can include camera feeds, telemetry views, and electronic health records, as well as the broadcast control where you can zero in on one patient, manipulate the camera, zoom in, and make a decision to dispatch a nurse right now or go in the room on an as-needed basis. We can show up to 16 feeds in a hospital in a typical large format display like a 55-inch, for example. But depending on the severity of the patients, the ideal number of feeds might be far less. We are currently consulting with some of our customers to determine what that number should be, but overall, NUCLeUS is very flexible and can accommodate a wide range of layouts to meet the customer need. Here's an example of one we did not too long ago. You've got your eye-in-the-sky room view on the left, your electronic health record in the middle, and then drill down to the patient view on the right. And down here at the desk, we have a real-time telemetry monitoring. This is just one example. We can configure the layout to match your individual workflow. And again, there is no hardware footprint, no engine that needs to live under the desk. All the sources are generated by your secure server in your IT closet, far away from the clinical space. One of the PTZ cameras supported by NUCLeUS is the Sony SRG X400. It's an ideal solution for remote patient monitoring. with 40 times zoom in full HD and 30 times zoom in 4K. It's more than capable of zooming in on a patient respirator, vital signs, or the patient themselves. This model supports PoE+, power over Ethernet, so you simply mount it to the wall and connect it to a network port. It's also ideal for healthcare teaching applications, capturing grand rounds without having to tap the AV team to come in and wheel in an AV cart. Another application could be to send a video feed back to the physician in the OR during a broadcast. It really elevates the production value of any broadcast. So what other healthcare PTZ applications can you think of? Take a moment and write your question in the message box. This is Mosaic, another tool in the arsenal for patient and room monitoring. Mosaic leverages fixed lens IP cameras to provide a live overview of up to 12 rooms at a time. Like all other NUCLeUS broadcast solutions, there is no local engine required. You simply extend a web browser to a desktop or a wall display. You can have multiple views on multiple displays, so each user sees exactly what they need to see and nothing else. And it doesn't just have to be in the OR. With Mosaic, you can monitor any space that has an IP camera that is supported by NUCLeUS. Think about some other cases for Mosaic. How about a hallway or a storage room? So you can track down that endo tower or microscope or ultrasound machine. Charge nurses can quickly locate a staff member or assets without having to pick up the phone or physically go into a room. Hospital administrators can identify inefficiencies in housekeeping and monitor room turnover while ensuring compliance. Who else could benefit from a view of Mosaic? How about a physician's lounge? A doctor can quickly see if the patient is ready. Where else? Again, with Mosaic, the IP camera lenses are typically wide angle and fixed so as to ensure patient privacy while providing the staff with a room status. And if you want complete privacy, NUCLeUS privacy controls will ensure that no audio or video leaves the room. I think the big takeaway here is that NUCLeUS is the ultimate efficiency tool for healthcare collaboration. It helps bridge the gap between clinical spaces, teaching spaces, and clinical administration. With NUCLeUS, patient monitoring is simple. Virtual presence is possible. Teaching moments can be easily captured and shared. This short presentation was focused primarily on patient monitoring and broadcasting, but NUCLeUS is a complete solution for the entire enterprise. If you're a healthcare provider and you don't have the room or budget for a large infrastructure project, reach out to us and we'll be happy to provide a personalized demo or set up a proof of concept to see if NUCLeUS is right for you. If you're in the AV world, you may already have some opportunities in a healthcare setting. So reach out to your Sony rep directly or via our LinkedIn page, where you can also keep up to date on product releases and solution updates. It was my pleasure to present to you today. Thank you for spending your time with us, and we look forward to seeing you on another Tech Tuesday. We can now open it up for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate the presentation, and we certainly do have questions. First one is from Omar, and he asks, what is the bandwidth requirement on the network?
Bandwidth on the network will vary depending on whether you're putting, composite video, HD video, all the way up to 4K. But the quick answer to that question is generally no more than 600 megabits per second between source and destination would be the bandwidth requirement. So if it's totally supported by a copper infrastructure. So if you have Cat5e or Cat6, you can support that. Any switch, any 1 gigabit switch can support that. So generally speaking, no more than 600 megabits.
Great, Paul. So I think there are two related follow-up questions from Stephen. Stephen asks, what is the latency in milliseconds? And he also asks, what is the real network usage bit rate?
I'm going to defer the bit rate question to Mark, but as far as latency goes, that's a really important question. When a doctor is moving the endoscopy camera, they definitely don't want there to be any latency between the scope and what they're seeing on the display. So the latency on NUCLeUS is actually less than 1 frame of video. So I believe that equates to somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 milliseconds of latency. Virtually indistinguishable and as good as basically connecting the camera directly to a display. And as far as the other question, I'm going to let our senior engineer, Mark Barron, handle that one.
Yeah, so this is Mark Barron. The other question was, what is the real network usage bit rate? So for instance, the cameras we can set in multiple different configurations. I'm going to actually have Marco Manjares answer the question on that. He is better suited for the network questions. Marco.
Sorry guys, I was muted. Yeah, so on the camera side, specifically about PTCs, we can go as low as probably 4 megabits. Once we get it into our system and you're sending out to any of the possible recipients, you're looking at streams of about 25 megabits per second, multiply the numbers of connections that you have. So that the actual bit rate will change depending on what's the configuration on the camera side, starting as low as probably 4 meg. And then how many clients, how many PCs are connecting, looking at a broadcasting stream. Anything else that happens inside of an operating room that is going from a transmitter to a receiver specifically for clinical application is contained through multicast streams within a switch, so that is negligible on the impact to the network.
Great. Hey, Marco, maybe stick around for a follow-up question here. Omar asks, does NUCLeUS have a solution to provide its own network, or is the system always dependent on the customer's network?
Either or. If the network on the customer side is up to the specifications that we need, we'll be more than happy to set it up on the customer network. We'll provide all the configuration parameters that we'll need, and we'll go through the entire process. If it's an older network, we haven't really run into that, or if they don't want to combine multiple services on the same network, then we can do a parallel network as well. So it's customizable depending on the customer needs.
Thank you. And Steve has another follow-up question. He asks about he asks, what about the bit rate to each monitor?
So those are the IPCs and everything, transmitter and receiver. Each one of those will have a specific configuration depending on what resolution do you want, starting as low as 150 megs. And going as high as visually lossless, you're looking at about 600 megs for 4K. The minimum required links that we need is 1 gig to each one of those devices. So we'll way under, the capacity for the network, and most likely way under the switching capacity for any switch, within the last 2-3 years, probably 5 years.
And if I can add one thing to that, Marco, and all the traffic really stays within the switch that is serving that 1 OR. So this traffic generally doesn't leave the switch. It doesn't go on the uplink. So it could easily be handled by a 1 gig switch.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions coming in here about streaming to a tablet. So asking, can the video stream be viewed on a tablet?
Yes.
Yeah.
The short.
Yeah.
Go
The
ahead.
short answer, I guess, is that we're using an iPad right now. There's a free app that you can download and use on your iPad for viewing directly from the ORs. So it is possible, and it's actually in use in a couple places right now. The one thing that we are working on and potentially coming out with is control through a tablet. Right now, everything is controlled through a touch panel or through a web browser in the room itself. But also, we're getting a lot of feedback from customers that they may want to be able to use that tablet to do control within the room itself.
Okay, and that was a follow-up question from David. He asked, will the viewing tablet also control your camera's PTZ, and which tablet brands have been approved and or tested and pre-approved?
Yeah, it's the iPad Pro for that.
Okay, great. Couple of questions about audio. Joel asks, how does the two-way audio communication work, and can it be made to be hands-free audio communication?
Marco, you want to grab that one?
Yes. So within the NUCLeUS network, the audio communication, you will also have a device that will turn that audio into an IP stream. If you're looking at clinical applications, once you start a procedure, then you'll be able to hear that audio, to have that two-way audio communication. If you're talking strictly about audio communication without any of the clinical portion of it, I think that'll be better suited combining other devices. But we can customize the solution according to your needs.
Great. Another question from Omar. Are the displays networked also? Do they use DHCP or static? And does the image, will the image be affected by hospitals' network capabilities? If I have a large amount of devices, does it start bogging down the hospital network?
That really is really determined by what devices are on the network. The switch, what load is on the switch, and it might be necessary to have a switch just for the NUCLeUS devices. But that question, we would have to take a look at to see what devices are on there, how much bandwidth each device occupies. Generally speaking, you should be able to go from the source in the room to a display in the room. They're connected to the same switch without any issue.
Great, thank you. Question from Terrence. He asks, what codec is used for transport?
It's a Sony IP converter on both sides, so the codec would be, Marco, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a proprietary codec to transport the video from source to the destination.
Correct. LLVC is the coding mechanism that we're using to guarantee the under 1 frame per second. So low latency video communication.
Okay. Question from Skip. Are all sources in an OR recorded, or just what is chosen to be broadcast? i.e., can 5 devices be viewed later?
Yeah, so yes to both. So let's separate recording and broadcasting, as there are 2 different functions. So yes, you can record one or all of the sources in the OR at the same time. And you can also broadcast one or all of the sources in the OR. Of course, if you broadcast them, that broadcast is sent out. Whoever views it in real time views it, and once the broadcast stops, that's it. If you're recording, then all the content is recorded on the hospital network to be retrieved later with a portal called NUCLeUS Archive, where a user can just log into NUCLeUS Archive. User meaning the doctor, select their patient, and view, edit, download the recording. So yeah, so the answer is yes to both of those.
Okay, there was another question here regarding the models of Sony PTZ cameras that can be integrated with the solution. I had posted in the chat the 3 models, which are the SRG X120, the SRG X400, and the BRC X1000, along with links to their product pages. So those are the 3 cameras, 3 Sony PTZ cameras that currently work with the NUCLeUS system. Question about accessing the recordings outside of the hospital. Larry asks, can a doctor access the recordings outside of the hospital?
Yeah, it's possible. The hospital would have to provide that user with VPN access into the NUCLeUS server. The NUCLeUS server obviously is secured inside the hospital network. But with VPN access or Citrix, that is entirely possible to access recordings or even to view a broadcast for that matter. Yes.
Okay, and I guess a follow-up to storage, there are 2 questions. Is any of the data stored on the cloud? And how much video can the NUCLeUS store? Is there a limit?
There's no limit to the amount of storage. So when we come in, we'll do network requirements with the hospital, and the hospital can carve out whatever amount of storage that they want to assign, depending on the number of clinical spaces that are capturing. If you have a multi-room hospital and every room is recording with every case, you're going to need many terabytes of storage. If you have just 1 or 2 rooms, probably 1 or 2 terabytes of storage would be more than enough. So it varies depending on your needs, but NUCLeUS will support whatever storage is carved out for NUCLeUS. And as far as in the cloud, no. Generally, the NUCLeUS system exists on the hospital server in their own IT closet, and it is not by default available in the cloud. There's no, I mean, you own the server. You don't need to purchase any type of, all these cloud services have fees that they charge per megabit or what have you, and you don't need to worry about any of that. None of this content is stored in the cloud.
And we have a question from Michael. He asks, is there any smart technology associated with NUCLeUS, for example, facial recognition?
That's a great question. I'll let Mark handle that one.
Yeah, so that's one of the unique things about our product, in that once you enter into the IP realm, the Internet Protocol realm, and you have the data that's digitized, we apply what's called smart apps, and those smart apps can actually help and assist the doctors in performing their surgeries. We have package 1 right now, but also we have an API available to anybody who has the wherewithal to develop their own smart apps. It becomes their own intellectual property. Our R&D group is always working on things such as this, facial recognition, smoke removal, jitter control, so that you're not getting the shakiness when you go into extreme zooms. So a lot of those things we're working on, and we plan on coming out with them. or working with our partners to help them develop their own through the API.
Okay, and I think we have a camera question here for Drew. Drew, Thomas asks, how is the camera 40 times zoom achieved?
Okay, well, the SRG X400 is a 20 times optical zoom lens, and then we're applying a technique called clear mid zoom, which is a super scaling technique that in a full HD format, you would go from 20 times to 40 times. If you're in a 4K format, we would be going from 20 times to 30 times.
Okay, great. Thank you, Drew.
Mm-hmm.
Couple more follow-up questions from Omar. Does the system have any type of DICOM image video storage?
So yeah, so the DICOM is really within the hospital realm. We have the tools that allow you to store to DICOM or to a PACS, a picture archival communication system. At the end of the procedure or during the procedure, you can elect to save things directly to the PACS so they become part of the patient record. That is, as I said, as part of the hospital infrastructure. They've spent a lot of money for their PACS systems and for the DICOM functionality. So we are a facilitator to take those videos and push them to the PACS system where they become part of the patient record. So in essence, it's not part of NUCLeUS, but we are the middleman to take that information and pass it to the PACS.
Follow-up question, any integration with HL7?
Yeah, that's the main means. HL7 is Health Level 7, which is a communication protocol that allows all systems to communicate on the same type of standards, right? So it's not proprietary. It's a well-established standard out there for EMR, electronic medical records. Part of PACS and DICOM also communicates on that modality work list, and our system works readily with that. We have the tools available to work with just about any EMR or EHR system out there.
Okay, and Terrence asks, can it work with 3D?
Again, yes. We have a lot of different 3D systems ourselves, but also there's some modalities out there, such as the Davinci robot, which works in 3D. Our system works readily, and we've been working with Davinci for over 10 years now. So we have not only NUCLeUS is able to record in 3D and route to different monitors in 3D, but also we have our own 3D monitors, medical grade monitors that reside in the hospital and in the OR themselves that will present 3D to the needs of the customer in the room.
Thanks, Mark. We have another compression question. Caleb asks, what bit depth is supported for video and what compression ratio is being applied?
Marco, you want to grab that?
Yeah, it's a 10 bit and the compression will depend on the amount of bandwidth that you're using. So the most compressed video, we're going as low as 100 megs. The least compressed video, you're going to be around 3.5 gig.
Okay, thank you. And I believe those are all the questions for this session. If any were missed, just to let everyone know, we do capture all of these questions as well as your contact information, and we will be following up directly if there are any further questions or questions that need a bit more of a detailed explanation. Again, want to thank everyone for your time and your attention and your interest in this exciting solution, NUCLeUS, and its integration with PTZ cameras. Just as a reminder, next week, September 7th, it'll be the Tuesday after Labor Day, and we're going to take a break, so there'll be no Tech Tuesday presentation next week. Please remember to join us back on September 15th, where we will go over our wireless audio systems and again, integration with our PTZ cameras. use cases, and promotions. Another reminder to please follow us on our LinkedIn pages for both Sony Professional Healthcare Solutions and our Sony AV Solutions. And please take a moment. There's a brief questionnaire that will be presented to you at the end of the webinar. It'll just take a minute or two, and your input will help us to determine future webinars and to highlight future areas of interest. So with that, I remind you, if you have further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us through any number of means. Like I said, LinkedIn, or contact your Sony local account manager directly. I wish everyone a great Labor Day weekend holiday, and wish you all stay healthy and safe. And we'll see you on September 15th. Thank you.